This is a response to Veritas48's 5 questions for atheists. Question 1. If atheism turned out to be wrong and I could choose to say anything to God upon death, what would it be? I would ask him, that is with the sexist assumption that this is a God that made us in his own image and he turned out to be male, why he created a world in which logic tells us that his existence is more improbable than probable. And at the risk of going into unnecessary detail, I'll give 3 broad reasons for why I say this. First, I feel that logic tells us that it's unlikely that unevolved, infinite complexity came before simplicity. To me, it's just a logic-defying idea that in the beginning there was this infinitely complex God who then created this simple energy of the Big Bang and then set things up in a way that complexity would unfold gradually. Same goes for this, the first spark of life here on Earth. It seems highly improbable that a mind-bogglingly complex God would create the first simple form of life some 4 billion years ago, and then keep life incredibly simple for the next billion years until sexual reproduction finally evolved, and then have complexity arise in a way fully explainable through natural and unguided ways. Second, I feel that unbiased and extensive observations of nature also point to an indifferent universe, whether it's the indifference of natural disasters or the way that the continuation of life often depends on violent destruction of other life forms. Now, with cherry-picked situations, you can explain observations based on a loving deity, and with other cherry-picked situations, an evil deity is what makes the most sense. But I feel that when you take all known observations into account, an indifferent universe is the only explanation that holds up consistently. A tornado, for example, will sometimes kill a villain at just the right moment. But a tornado will also destroy an orphanage, killing or maiming all the children inside. And sometimes a tornado will unleash full fury on a completely remote area. Third, when it comes to the so-called directions of God, as presented in the form of thousands of religions, often based just on oral tradition, or based on handwritten documents that are based on oral legends that are decades or even centuries old, all this certainly looks like it was just people making up things in order to try to explain creation and suffering and rules for living and an afterlife. So, if it turned out that I was wrong and faced a judgmental God, I would want to know why the world is set up in such a way that the evidence supports lack of existence. All right, question 2. What sort of evidence would you find sufficient in order to abandon atheism and become a believer in God? I would say that the same sort of evidence that convinces me of all the other things that I hold to be true. I mean, why do I believe that Barack Obama is the President of the United States? Even though I've never met him, I've never seen any sort of documentation that actually supports this. Why do I believe Abraham Lincoln was the president back in the 1860s, or that America's Civil War happened? Or why do I believe that the Earth rotates on its axis? I believe these things because they make sense out of all observations. And they make predictions that agree with observations. And these facts that I mentioned, well, I call them facts because they're supported by overwhelming evidence, no matter where we turn. For example, I've never read any newspapers from 1863. But I predict that if I were to go into the archives and find several that covered national news, I would find at least one reference to America's Civil War and to the then President Lincoln. Now, I could elaborate on this argument, but I don't think I need to. Question 3. Do you think that the new atheist movement is ultimately a good thing or a bad thing for free thinkers? And Veritas48 defines this new atheist movement as one that holds that religion deserves no respect. Now, I feel it's a mixed bag. For one thing it is good at is bringing attention to the subject. Because for better or worse, people just thrive on conflict. I mean, it's conflict what drives the stories in novels and in movies, and without conflict, there's just little story. I think it's no surprise, therefore, that Christopher Hitchens, for example, gets a lot more media attention than Daniel Dennett. On the other hand, insults wound people's pride. And when someone's pride is wounded, that usually just ends genuine dialogue on the issues. Insulted people will either shut the other person out and not want to bother responding at all, or lash back in a way to defend their position at any cost. And either way, the specifics of the argument get lost. And now this was the subject of my very first video response to Veritas48. And I call that video On Being a Skeptic, Motives and Manners. And I'll post a link to it. Now, it's not the most popular video on my channel, but it probably is my most widely viewed video, thanks to the popular YouTuber Freethinker, who mirrored it on his channel. All right, question 4. What sorts of decisions are affected by your atheism? Now, before I was an atheist, I was something of a fuzzy, unsure deist. And I had my doubts about the Creator being a personal sort of God, but I did somehow feel that donating blood was a form of prayer to this undefined God that I thought might exist. So once I became an atheist, and I confess that this is revealing something of my shallowness, I wondered if I should continue to donate blood, because after all, any vague hopes that I had that there was a God who looked favorably upon this, those hopes were gone. So in confessing this, yes, I am admitting that there can be some practical advantages to people believing in a God that rewards us for unselfish behavior. It's certainly not an argument for theism being true, but it is at least a limited example of an advantage of people believing in a God that watches us, even if this God exists nowhere other than our own imaginations. Anyway, in the end, it did not make a difference. I still continue to donate blood, and I think my motivation for this can be explained by evolution. Because even though people think of the struggle for survival and for reproductive success as something based on competition alone, and even cruel and brutal competition, caring and cooperation can be equally crucial when it comes to natural selection. Cooperative traits, for example, they're just widespread in just about all animals that live in social groups. Because social animals need to cooperate. They need to work together in order to raise their young, to warn each other of predators, to hunt their food, and to fight off their enemies. So I feel that my willingness to have a large needle stuck uncomfortably in my arm and drain out a pint of blood comes from a cooperative trait that's based on evolutionary roots that go back millions of years, predating the human race itself. And let's see, by the way, I do have my Gallon Club here from the New York Blood Center, just to back this anecdote up with some evidence. All right. I also have a video series on this subject called the Pre-Religion and Pre-Human Roots of Morality, which I'll post a link to. And I'll also post a link to one of my favorite videos on the subject, a video by Noel Plum99 called The Roots of Our Morality. All right, question 5. What's more important, gaining true beliefs about the world or not gaining false beliefs about the world? I don't have much to say on this one, as I feel the two are closely related. Part of what's discovering what's true is weeding out what's false. All right, on a closing note, I'll say that I have a lot of things in my life right now outside of YouTube that I need to focus on. So I hope that Veritas48 stops making these videos that I feel compelled to respond to. All right, thanks for watching.